Okay, good afternoon, students. In our previous class, we discussed some of the technical terms. That is nothing but the terminology in cryptography we discussed. So, initially, we defined what is cryptography, and then we have seen what this crypt analysis will have the impact on cryptography. I mean, how these two streams of studies are related to each other. And then we have seen what is cryptology. Okay, simply we said the combination of cryptography as well as crypt analysis, we are calling it as cryptology. Then we have also seen how cryptanalysis is gaining importance over cryptography, and why the cryptanalyst job is high paid than the cryptographer job. That also we discussed. Okay, then we get into the technical terms concept, like what is plain text, what is ciphertext, and what is cipher. And then we also discussed what is encryption, what is decryption. All these technical terms we have seen. And finally, we also discussed uh, what is brute force attack. With an example, I have given the idea of this brute force attack and why it is having importance in cryptography. That also we discussed. Okay. Then we have seen the different dimensions based on which these ciphers are nothing but your encryption algorithms. Encryption algorithms are categorized. So we said those different dimensions are the type of operations that we are going to perform on the plain text in order to convert it into ciphertext. Those types of operations are nothing but your substitution techniques as well as your transposition techniques that we have discussed. Then the number of keys used, whether we are using only one key, two key, or how many keys we are using. Based on that, also the categorization has been happened, and the way in which the plain text is processed, whether we are processing the plain text as a single stream or we are dividing the plain text into number of blocks, isn't it? All these dimensions and the technical terms we have seen in our previous video. And quickly in today's video, we'll be discussing the different types of encryption algorithms. And so basically, if you see the different types of encryption algorithms, we have three in number: symmetric key encryption, asymmetric key encryption, and this hash function. Basically, in symmetric key encryption, yesterday also we have seen we are going to use only one key, isn't it? Both for encryption as well as decryption, we are using only one key, and that is the reason why we are also calling this symmetric key encryption as private key encryption or secure key encryption or one key encryption algorithm, isn't it? So then we have a symmetric key. It is also dependent on key. And here we are going to use two keys. We are going to use two keys, one for encryption and the other one for decryption purpose. Here in this scenario for asymmetric key cryptography, here in these scenarios, what we do is generally there is no concept of sharing of key. To avoid that sharing of key, because symmetric key in the sense only one key is used, so the sender, he has to share the key with the receiver. And how that sharing is going to be happened, it is again something like a trustworthy concept, isn't it? A trustworthy, the sender has to believe somebody will hand over that key securely or without disclosing that key to somebody else, to the receiver. So over there, the key sharing is the problematic thing. Because of that, they went to this public key encryption or asymmetric key encryption, where instead of one key, we are going to use two keys. One will remain securely they maintain one, and the other one they will share with everybody. They will share with everybody. It is open to the world. The public key encryption, where the key is open to the world. Okay, so we will see how these symmetric key encryption algorithm will work, and what are the different types of symmetric key algorithms we have in reality. The examples examples of these symmetric key encryption algorithms we will see. And then we have asymmetric, that also same. First we will see how it will work and what are the examples for this asymmetric key cryptography. Okay, this hash function, it is something related to uh, what we call, again we are going to discuss about these hash functions also in detail when it comes in our syllabus. Okay, so quickly we start about the symmetric key cryptography in today's class. So symmetric key cryptography, yeah, we have the terminology over here. We also called it as one key cryptography, secret key cryptography, private key cryptography, or conventional cryptography, because it is the traditional way or the classical way of converting your ciphertext, I mean converting your plain text into ciphertext. That is the reason why we are calling it as conventional cryptography or conventional way of encrypting the data. Using only one key is the conventional way of encrypting the data, or we can say the first of its kind which got invented in the market, or which got used in the market, the first of its kind. Okay, so that is the reason we are calling it as conventional cryptography algorithm. So here both the sender and the receiver of the message has to share one single key. We are going to have only one key. And first of all, what is key in the sense? It is also a piece of information. A key is nothing but it is also a piece of information, or the idea how we are going to encrypt the data. Okay, the piece of information which is used in the encryption as well as in decryption process. The piece of information which is used in both encryption as well as in decryption process is nothing but your key. So in symmetric key encryption or in symmetric key cryptography, we are going to use only one key, and it has to be shared. The single key, it has to be shared both by the sender as well as the receiver. Okay, so the sender will encrypt the data by using that key, and the receiver will decrypt the data or decrypt the message by using that same key. Okay, and in order to make this approach a successful approach, the key must be known to all the recipient, isn't it? You are creating one message and you are encrypting that message. Why you are encrypting means you want to share that message with trusted parties, with trusted people on whom you have the trust, that or on whom um, uh, those who are going to use your message for their purposes, isn't it? Generally whenever we generate a message, it will have some kind of usage. Without that, there is no mean that we are generating a message. So that usage, in order to accomplish, we have to transmit that message to our recipients. And generally when we call them as recipients means only when they are trusted parties, only when they are trusted parties. So we have to share that message with recipients, and those recipients, they must to have that keys in order to decrypt the message, isn't it? If one particular recipient, if he is not having the key, means he will unable to decrypt that message and he is unable to see the content of that particular message. So it is a problematic thing. Sharing of key is a problematic thing in symmetric key cryptography. Symmetric key cryptography. So so every symmetric key model will have, symmetric cipher model will have this following five ingredients, isn't it? Ingredients. So the first is plain text. We already defined what is plain text. So once again, for your information, the original intelligible message. The plain text is nothing but the original intelligible message. Simply by reading that message, one can get the idea, isn't it? One can get the idea what the message is saying. So such message we call it as plain text. And encryption algorithm, it is nothing but it is a technique, or it is a way, it is the steps to follow in order to convert the plain text into ciphertext. So generally those steps will have different transposition and substitution techniques. Those steps will have different transposition and substitution techniques, so that to scramble the text, of your plain text. Okay, so by using encryption algorithm, what we are doing, we are scrambling the plain text into ciphertext. So that secret key, again, it is some piece of information, and it will be used both at the sender as well as the receiver end. And in order to scramble and unscramble that plain text, we are making use of this secret key. Okay, secret key is nothing but it is also a piece of information helpful in the process of encryption as well as in the process of decryption. Okay. Yeah, is there any relationship between this key and the plain text and the ciphertext? In the sense, no, there is no relationship. This key, it is entirely independent of your plain text as well as the ciphertext. Using this key, what type of plain text we can convert it into ciphertext means of any type, any length, we can say. Okay. So yeah, what type of substitution and transposition mechanisms? Generally, we said in the encryption process and in the decryption process, we are going to use the substitution and transposition techniques in order to scramble the plain text. So those substitution and transposition techniques, they are dependent on the key, but not the plain text and the ciphertext. You have to remember this point. Only the substitution and transposition techniques are dependent on this plain text, sorry, ciphertext, sorry, secret key. Okay. So these two things, your plain text and your ciphertext, okay, those two are independent of the key. So we have the key, and this key nowhere dependent on. So simply we have to write not dependent on either the plain text or the ciphertext. Plain text or the ciphertext. But whereas when you have the key and this key is completely dependent, it is dependent, or we can say the operations what we are performing, they are dependent. So like this, we have to show the arrow mark. The operations, what operations we are performing under encryption means basically two types of operations we perform under encryption or under decryption. They are substitution, and what this substitution means, I have already given you the explanation in my previous video. And we also have the transposition. Okay. For this also we have the discussion in our previous video. These two types of operation as part of our encryption, also as part of our decryption we are performing. As part of encryption as part of decryption, we are performing these two operations, substitution and transposition, and they are entirely dependent on the type or the length or the size of the key what we are using. But plain text, ciphertext, nowhere they are dependent on the key. They are completely independent of the key. Okay. So, okay. Next thing we have the ciphertext, the converted text, the scrambled text, the unintelligible text. We can give any names to that one. So simply why we are calling it as unintelligible text means if a lame person or if a person without the knowledge of key and encryption process, if he reads that message, he will not understand anything from that message. He will not get any idea from that message. So that is the reason why we are calling it as ciphertext. Okay. So this ciphertext we can transmit over the public channel. Finally, the decryption algorithm, it is quite opposite to your encryption algorithm, or we can say the reverse of the encryption algorithm. And whatever cipher, whatever steps we follow under encryption algorithm, we do follow the same steps under decryption algorithm, but in reverse order. So these are some of the ingredients which we can find under this symmetric ciphers, symmetric encryption model or symmetric cipher model. Okay. So the next thing we have to understand how this encryption process will work. If you see this diagram over here, we have the plain input. So this plain input we are giving to the encryption algorithm. Plain input we are giving to the encryption algorithm, and different encryption algorithms we have. And over here they have given the example of AES. So AES stands for Advanced Encryption Standard. Advanced Encryption Standard. Likewise, we also have DES, Data Encryption Standard. Okay, we have DES, we have triple DES, we have AES. All these are examples for symmetric key encryption algorithm or symmetric cipher models. Symmetric cipher models. So during this encryption process, we also make use of the key. Okay, this key, it is also a piece of information, and this key is used in encryption process. Encryption process means is nothing but your substitution and transposition techniques. Under those techniques, they will make use of this key. Okay, they will make use of this key, and this key, it has to be shared by both the parties, your sender as well as the receiver. So after performing the encryption, we do get ciphertext, that is Y. After performing the encryption, that we get the ciphertext, and that ciphertext Y we are transmitting over the public channel. This is transmitting, this arrow mark, it will represent the public channel, and over the public channel we are transmitting the message, and at the receiver end once again we'll have the encrypted message, that is nothing but your Y, and we'll apply the key on that encrypted message in order to get the plain text. As you can see here, again the encrypted message we received, we are using the key and we are performing the decryption algorithm, and you can see clearly over here they have mentioned it as reverse of the encryption algorithm. Whatever encryption algorithm we are applying over here, the same encryption algorithm we apply over here also, but in reverse order. But in reverse order. So then after the implication of that algorithm, we will receive the plain text. Once again, we will receive the plain text. Here we supplied the plain text as input, but here we'll receive the plain text as output. Clear? So X is our plain text and K is our key. X is our plain text and K is our key, and Y is our ciphertext. Y is our ciphertext. So in order to obtain this Y, what we are doing? We are applying this function. E is a function on K and X, where K is key and X is plain text. Okay, where this K is nothing but your key, and this X is nothing but your plain text. Plain text. So what we are doing, and this E is nothing but it is an encryption algorithm. Encryption algorithm. So basically what we are doing, we are applying the encryption algorithm function on K and X to obtain the ciphertext. This Y is nothing but your ciphertext. And that ciphertext we are transmitting over the public channel. And at the receiver, what we are doing? At the receiver, again, we are making use of the key and the ciphertext. Here we are not using plain text. Here we are using ciphertext. Using key and ciphertext, and we are applying the decryption function. Decryption algorithm. So this D stands for decryption. Decryption algorithm. We are applying the decryption algorithm. Simply it is the reverse of encryption algorithm, and what we are getting is the X, and this X is nothing but your plain text. This X is nothing but your plain text. So what we are gaining by performing the decryption means we are gaining the plain text as output. Plain text as output. So this is one simplified symmetric encryption model. Simplified symmetric encryption model we have. So this is more in detail they have given. So message source, we are considering it as X. Okay, and that X we are giving to the encryption algorithm. Okay, that X we are giving to the encryption algorithm, and this encryption algorithm will make use of the key as well. If you see the key, it is going into different sources. One is to the encryption algorithm and another one is towards the secure channel. See, key when we are sharing, we can't share it over the public channel, isn't it? Because if we share the key over the public channel, anybody can easily hack it, and anybody can anybody can get the plain text or get the actual message from the encrypted message. Clear? So there is a need to transmit this key over the secure channel, over the trusted party channel, over the third party channel. So third party, sometimes we also call it as trusted third party. Clear? Trusted third party in the sense on whom we can believe that they can transmit our key securely to the receiver over the secure channel. over the secure channel. So here again we are applying the encryption algorithm. As you can see, cryptanalyst, we are saying cryptanalyst. Cryptanalyst is nothing but our attacker. Cryptanalyst is nothing but the attacker. So what he will do means he will monitor, he will observe, he will continuously be present on the public channel. Continuously be present on the public channel. So when we are performing the encryption algorithm and you are getting the getting this cipher text, he can easily obtain that cipher text from this public channel. He can easily obtain that Y from the public channel. And what is missing means he cannot get the key. He cannot get the key K and he cannot get the plain text X. He cannot get the key K and he cannot get the plain text X. The script analyst's intentions also we have to discuss. Again, I will come to this point and I will explain what may be the intentions of your crypt analyst. That also we have to discuss. It is a 2 marks question in your NSC paper. Okay, what are the intentions? Why the crypt analyst be present on the public network and why he is continuously hacking your data? Okay, so in general way we will discuss, not in a specific way that he's hacking your confidential information because to gain the financial advantage or to gain the political advantage. In not in that sense we will discuss. In general terms, why he is present on the public network and why he is gaining, why he is hacking your data, in general terms we will discuss. Okay, not as some XY, but in general terms we will discuss why it is happening. Okay, then after the encryption, we are transmitting that Y over the public channel, and that Y will received by the receiver. So he will apply the decryption algorithm. So he will receive that Y over the public channel, and the receiver will also receive K. From where he will receive that K means over the secure channel. So why we are calling this channel as secure means because here no attackers, no cryptanalysts are present, and it is not public. And it is not public. It is a trusted channel. That is the reason why we are calling it as a secured channel. That means whatever information we pass through this channel, that will reach the receiver securely. That will reach the receiver securely. So you may come across a doubt, sir, can't we send the actual message over the secure channel? Why we are dependent on this public network? Because this secure channel, they will charge based on the message content. If your message content is more means they will charge more. But whereas this public network, it is completely free of cost. Public network is completely free of cost. But whereas secure network, it is costly. They will charge. If you send the actual message, lengthy message over the secure channel, they will charge more. So to avoid that charge, to avoid that extra cost, what we are doing, we are simply transmitting the small key. This key is very small, isn't it? We are transmitting the small key over the trusted channel, and we are transmitting the actual message by converting it into ciphertext over the public channel. Clear? Over the public channel. Now, decryption algorithm will be applied by the receiver on the received ciphertext Y. Okay, by making use of this key K to get the X. To get the X. What is X? X is the plain text. What is X? X is the plain text. Now, at this point, we have to discuss what are the intentions of crypt analyst. A script analyst may be interested in your message at this point. Whatever message right now you are transmitting, he may be interested only in that message. So if he is interested only in that message, what he will do means he will try to retrieve, he will try to extract that plain text. We call that plain text as X cap or X dash. We call that plain text as X cap. So your crypt analyst, he may be interested only in the current message. So at that point, he nowhere shows any interest in the key, because he is interested only in the plain text of this message. Okay, he is interested in the plain text of this message, and he is not bothering about any past transmissions and also the future transmissions. So at that level, at that point, what he will do means he will shows interest only in the X cap. That is nothing but the current plain text. Or sometimes the crypt analysts, they are interested in not only the current transmission but also the past transmission, but also the future transmissions, so he wants to know the complete conversation between you and the recipient, so at that point, what he will do means, instead of doing the same job repeatedly for getting the plain text, he will capture the key, because once he have the key, he can apply, because it is it is it is it is a standard statement that every encryption, every encryption algorithm is known to the public. All the encryption techniques, whatever we apply, they are public in nature. Because they are standard people have given the standards to those encryption algorithms, so they are public in nature. Everybody knows those algorithms. So simply, everybody knows the encryption algorithm, we know, as well as the ciphertext, we know. So what is missing is the key. So if they know the key, they can simply apply the decryption algorithm on the ciphertext to get the plain text, isn't it? So if the cryptanalyst is interested only in the current message, so he will try to gain X cap. X cap is nothing but current plain text. If he is interested in not only in the current but also in the transmissions which have been performed in the past, as well as which you are going to perform in the future, then he will try to gain he will try to extract not the plain text but the key. That we call it as key cap, K cap. So K cap, when the script analyst is interested not only in the current but also the future but also the past transmissions. X cap, only when the crypt analyst is interested in the current transmission. Okay, in that way, the crypt analysts will work. Either they will try to extract the plain text if they are interested in the current transmission, or they will try to extract the key. Because once they got the key, they can even monitor the future transmissions also. They can even get the messages from the future transmissions also. Okay, so in that way, crypt analysts will do the job um, in this symmetric key cryptography. So examples, if we see the symmetric key cryptography examples, we have this data encryption standard published in the year 1977. Published, when we are saying this term, published means publicly accepted. Published in the sense publicly accepted or revealed to the public. So the data encryption standard was published in the year 1977 by the US National Bureau of Standards. Okay, NBS, National Bureau of Standards in America. They have published this data encryption standard in the year 1977. Okay, it uses two sets of keys. Okay, two different types of keys. One is a 56-bit key and another one is a 64-bit key. So generally what they do means they use only 56-bit key, and the blocks, it is a block cipher. That means it divides the plain text into 64-bit blocks, and it will convert this 56 bits into 64-bit input key, and it will apply the encryption, the substitution and transposition mechanisms between this 64-bit key as well as this 64-bit plain text to gain the 64-bit ciphertext. Okay, 56-bit key, it is very small when compared with today's modern computer power. So anybody can easily trace out that 56-bit key. They can program a computer, or they can program a computer application to track down the DES key, and they can very easily track down the DES key. So your information, your message, if you apply this DES algorithm, nowhere it is secured. Okay, it was the time in 1977 when computer power was very less, and when we don't have any intelligent computers at that time. There was no artificial intelligence concept, there was no powerful CPUs available in the market, there was no memory, nothing. Okay, you might be aware of the situation in 1977, how the computers were at that point. So at that point, because of that lack of computation, because of that lack of intelligence in the computers, this DES mechanism, it gained the popularity, and it used widespreadly. They used the US people, the US defense people, they used this DES algorithm widespreadly. Okay, so in today's modern computers, it is not possible to employ this DES algorithm, because we do have some powerful computers, we do have some intelligent computers. So if you program a computer to crack this DES very easily, they can crack the DES key for you. Okay, so then we got triple DES. Because of that limitations inside this DES, we got triple DES. So the algorithm is very simple. So simply what they have done means, this same DES mechanism they applied thrice, three times. Okay, so that is the reason why we are calling this algorithm as triple DES. Okay, triple DES was the answer to many of the shortcomings in DES. So whatever problems we encountered in DES, in order to solve those problems, they have gone for a triple DES. Okay, it also has the advantage of reliability in the sense, a longer key length that eliminates many of the shortcut attacks that can be used to reduce the amount of time it takes to break DES. So uh, whenever we think of an algorithm, whenever we think of a key, it should be not breakable, non-breakable in the sense, any person, any untrusted person, he cannot apply the um, what we call brute force attack, and he cannot get the key by simply applying the brute force attack. So we have to maximize the time duration to perform the brute force attack, isn't it? So suppose if you use for your that same example will take. Okay, that same example will take. Suppose we use only one digit as part of your key. If we use only one digit, how many possibilities we have? Only nine possibilities, or 10 possibilities we have. If we include zero also, we have 10 possibilities. So in hardly 10 attempts, okay, the attacker will get your key. How many tries I have to do? If I am the attacker, and if you are giving your phone with only one digit as the passcode, how many attempts I have to do before unlocking your phone? Only 10 attempts. In 10 attempts, because the brute force attack is having the minimum trail and trace methods, so anybody in short amount of time, he can easily open that phone. Hardly in less than a minute, I can get that passcode, and I can open your phone. If you employ two digit passcode, then how many tries I have to do? 100 try. Sorry, 100 only, right? Yeah, 00. If we include 00 also, so 100 tries. So in 100 tries, I can open. So may take 5 minutes. Okay, to apply the brute force attack on your passcode, it may take 5 minutes. If you take three digits, then three digit key, then it may take 1000 combinations, 1000 trails, so hardly half an hour we can say, in order to try that 1000 possibilities, half an hour. If you take four, so again 10,000 I have to try. So it will go up to like 2 hours, 3 hours, isn't it? 2 to 3 hours, I can easily get your key. Likewise, if you keep on increasing the key size, what will happen? The time duration to perform the brute force attack will also increase. The time duration or the time span will also increase. So we have to make the key length in such a way that the brute force attack will take years, not by the human but by the machines, isn't it? The computer will easily trace that key. So what the human being is doing, the computer can do in fraction of seconds. So we have to make the key length in such a way that even the computer cannot trace down your key in years. Because after years, what will happen? Ultimately, the importance of that message will degrade. Importance of that message will degrade. So even after 1 year, he will able to. I mean, the attacker able to get your get your key means it is of no use to him. It is of no use to him, because that message, it is no more valid. It is the message, it is no more having the any importance in the market, in the society. So ultimately, what will happen? No harm will be done to your transmission. No harm will be done to your transmission. So what our goal is to maximize the brute force attack time. Whatever cryptographic algorithm we are going to employ, whatever key size we are going to employ, simply our goal is to maximize the brute force attack. Okay, we have to maximize the brute force attack. Clear? So whatever shortcomings we are having inside DES, those shortcomings um, we are answering. Okay, we are getting an answer to those shortcomings with the help of this triple DES, we can say. So then we have the advanced encryption standard, and it is documented under RFC 3602. It is one of the important questions where this advanced encryption standard is documented, in the sense under RFC 3602. Request for comment 3602. Okay, advanced encryption standard. It is also adopted by the US government. Uh, so it is having different variants. Okay, it is also a block cipher algorithm, so it will divide the plain text into number of blocks, fixed size blocks, and the algorithm can be applied on those blocks. So the standards comprises of three block ciphers. So what is different over here is under AES 1 to Advanced Encryption Standard 128, Advanced Encryption Standard 192, and Advanced Encryption Standard 256 is the key length: 128 bit key, 192 bit key, and 256 bit key. So in DES we are having only 56 bit key, isn't it? The key length is 56 bits. But over here we are having 128 bits, 192 bits, and 256 bits up to. So the longer the key length, the difficult it will become for the brute force attack to crack the key. Clear? So each AES cipher has a 128-bit block size. So whatever different variable length key sizes we have, but it will divide the plain text into 128-bit key. I mean 128 bits only, 128-bit blocks only. It will divide the plain text into 128-bit blocks, and it will employ all these keys on that to get the cipher blocks. Okay. Uh, yeah, these AES ciphers still now they are analyzed, and they are used widespreadly all over the world. Okay. Uh, so this is about AES. Then we have the International Data Encryption Algorithm, which was developed in the year 1991, and it uses 128-bit key to encrypt a 64-bit block. Okay, so plain text we are taking 64-bit block, and the key size is 128-bit key. Okay, and it generates a 64-bit block cipher only. Okay, yeah, this IDEA general structure is very similar to your DES structure. It performs 17 rounds of operations. Each round comprises of different substitution and transposition techniques. Okay, each round taking 64 bit of input and procedure, a 64 bit output. It takes 64 bit plain text and gives 64 bit cipher text. Okay, and at each level, at each round, it is using 128 bit key. Okay, the diagram and all, because in second unit once again we'll discuss this symmetric key encryption algorithms in detail. In detail, we'll take the plain text, how it will be generated to, how it will be transmitted to cipher text, and what are the internal operations we are performing, whether we are performing substitution, whether we are performing transposition, how many rounds, at only one round we are performing or at different rounds we are performing, what is the key size. All those things we will discuss in detail in your second unit. So there are some other examples we have for this symmetric key encryption algorithms, like your Lucifer and Madriga, Feel, Redco. Okay, different. All these are Blowfish, Safer, Crab, RC5, RC4. All these are different examples for your symmetric key encryption algorithms. Okay. So if you search over the internet, they will give you very huge, a very big list of this symmetric key cipher, but we are going to discuss only limited. Basically, we do study about this DES because it is the classical conventional algorithm, the first of its kind algorithm. So we definitely study about this DES. We'll try to analyze how the encryption is being performed under this DES. Then we also study triple DES. Whatever we study in DES, if you apply that same algorithm thrice, you will get the triple DES. Then we have advanced encryption standard with different key lengths, with variant key lengths, that also we discussed. Then IDEA also we will discuss. Okay, then RC4, RC5 also we discuss. Okay, so then problems associated with this symmetric key encryption algorithm. The major problem is the key management. The way we share the key with our uh, receiver is the major problem. Okay, uh, these algorithms, they are very simpler and they are very faster. Okay, simpler and faster. Their main drawback is that the two parties must somehow exchange the key. The key exchange is the major problem in symmetric cipher algorithm. Okay, um, so key management caused nightmares for the parties using the symmetric key cryptography. So the problem is solved. The message is now confidential, but the problem is with key. How we are going to share that key with our recipient? Okay, either we have to visit the recipient personally, nowhere it is economical, isn't it? Nowhere it is economical. So the key management, the key transmission, the key sharing is the major drawback or major what setback we can say in this symmetric key cryptography. Okay, so somehow they solved the issue of this key management by making use of, by involving a third person, a trusted third person, a secure channel into the transmission. But nevertheless, again we got the issues with it's what we call, um, to what extent we are going to trust the third party. Okay, the key management people, to what extent we are going to trust. At some point, what will happen, they will reveal the key to the untrusted people so that they can also get the confidential information from your messages, from your encrypted messages. So because of that, if once if the key was compromised, isn't it? Revealing the key is nothing but compromising the key. If the key was compromised, the entire coding system was compromised. So nowhere the secret will remain secret. Once the key is revealed means nowhere the secret will remain secret. So this is why the invention of asymmetric key encryption algorithms has been done. The public key encryption algorithms has been done where there is no concept of key management, no key sharing. Okay, so everybody will have their own keys. Everybody will encrypt the message by using the third party, I mean the recipient's keys, and the recipient will decrypt the key by using their private key. So here two keys we are going to use. One is public and one is private. So in tomorrow's class we'll discuss how that model works. I mean, how we are going to use the public key for encryption and how we are going to use the private key for decryption. All those things we'll see in tomorrow's model. Okay, hopefully you understood the concept clearly. So if you have any doubts, you can post in the comment section. Definitely I am going to answer those. So thank you students, thank you very much.